there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. My sister refused to babysit my son, so I kicked her out of my house. After that, you want me to fly 12 hours earlier because it's cheaper? And after that, am I the jerk for making my husband do his chores, even when his parents are over to visit? Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen gets kicked out.
At least I wouldn't have to sit in here with you all day anymore.
So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My sister refused to babysit my son, so I kicked her out of my house. I, 30 female, live with my husband, male 31, and our son, who's 5. My sister, who's 22, is still in college and had to move in with us 3 months ago because she had some issues with her roommates. Things were going fine until this argument. She also doesn't work, but my parents send her money for textbooks and groceries, but she's barely ever contributed to the household since she moved in with us. We also live in a different state from our parents and family, so I'm basically throwing her in the streets by kicking her out, which would make me a huge jerk. So my son comes back from school at around 3 to 3:30 p.m. My husband works until 6 and I work until 5, although sometimes I have to stay an hour or two extra. This is not normal, maybe 3 or 4 times per month when we're behind on a project. We had a babysitter that would wait until he's back. He comes back home via the school bus and would stay with him until me or my husband could come back from work. However, she recently discovered she's sick and she told us that she can't continue working as she has to go through treatment. We thanked her for telling us and wished her to get well soon. I asked my sister to babysit our son until we can get a new babysitter, given that she doesn't have any classes at that time. She told me she never agreed to babysit when she moved in here, and that I should have told her beforehand so she could have found somewhere else to live. I told her that I knew this wasn't our agreement, but this was something exceptional since our babysitter has medical issues. She still told me she can't babysit because sometimes she has to go to the library or to study with friends, and babysitting would limit her hours of studying. I got angry, maybe too angry. So I told her that we never even ask anything from her. We helped her because we wanted to be kind with her, and yet she can't even compromise to just stay for a few hours just until we find a new babysitter. I ended up telling her that she has a week to leave because we will not be providing food or a roof over a jerk like her's head. One of my son's friend's mom is taking care of my son now. They go back to her home together and I pick him up later. My sister tried to apologize, but I told her I don't want to live with her because she showed me her true colors. She also has told our family, and a lot of them are giving me crap for leaving my sister homeless. My husband, my in-laws, and my friends support me, but it feels really harsh that my family isn't on my side. Makes me think I'm a jerk, to be honest. Edit. It wasn't easy to find another person to take care of my son. I had to take 2 days off from work, which will be taken from my next paycheck. Not the jerk. Everyone voting you're the jerk because parents must never ask for help must come from very dysfunctional families. This is not your routinely exploiting her, it's asking for help in a sudden moment of need. My family is normal, and therefore we scramble to help each other when need be. Then again, Reddit has been teaching me that family dynamics in the US are apparently weirdly cold, individualistic, selfish, and transactional. So maybe over there, we would be the weird ones. Not the jerk. You were not asking her to babysit indefinitely, just literally to help you out while you looked for an alternative. She was fine with living with you for free while not contributing at all to the household, and the first time you asked her for temporary assistance with something, she made it clear that she has zero intention of helping you out ever. You are under no obligation to help someone out who would not reciprocate when you need them. You want me to fly 12 hours earlier because it's cheaper? I, 56, male, in the UK, was working in Africa as an operations manager for a large global security company from 2009 to 2014. The country I was working in had been through a long war and was very underdeveloped. Think no paved roads, people living a very traditional African lifestyle. At the time, I'd been working there on a 10 weeks in-country, 2 weeks at home rotation for about 4 years. I'd flown to and from work so often that I had the journey down to the bare minimum travel time. And it worked out the cheapest option for the company because travel days were paid from when I left home. The shorter my journey, the cheaper it worked out for the company. Someone in the head office had looked at cutting down on travel costs, probably to make themselves look good and get promoted. As a result, I got an email after a week at home saying they had changed my normal flight, which was 5 p.m. on Sunday from my nearest UK airport via Amsterdam, then on to Nairobi, connecting with a 9 a.m. flight to the war-torn country on Monday morning. The change was from a 5 p.m. departure to a 5 a.m. departure the same day, same route, and saving about 80 pounds. To clarify, the 9 a.m. flight from Nairobi was the first flight to war-torn country because the destination airport was the only surfaced runway in the country. It had no runway lights or radar, so all flights had to be in daylight. Anyway, I agreed to the flight time change, but they had to move it to the Monday so I don't lose a day at home. All will become clear. They agreed because they still saved 80 pounds on the ticket, so no skin off their nose. Once I got the flight confirmation, I contacted the travel desk asking for hotel and taxi bookings. When they asked why I need these, I explained that to make a 5 a.m. departure required a check-in at 3 a.m. So I needed a hotel at the airport on Sunday night because no trains were running to get me the 3 hours to the airport from home for that time of the morning. The flights they booked would get me into Nairobi for 7 p.m. after dark, so I'd need a hotel there and a taxi each way to and from the hotel to get me onto the 9 a.m. flight on Tuesday. The same flight I would have been on if I'd left at 5 p.m., but a day later. A couple of days go by and I get a phone call from the company travel desk telling me the travel plan was confirmed. I was on the 5 a.m. flight with a hotel reservation at my UK airport the night before, a hotel in Nairobi after landing, and the taxi would collect me in Nairobi and drop me at the airport for my final connection. I asked about the cost saving. They said 80 pounds. I then asked about the hotels and taxis. They replied, "Oh, they don't come out of our budget. That's the operations budget, so you're fine." I was happy. I was arriving back at work a day later, still paid the same amount with a night out in Nairobi to sweeten the deal. My boss, on the other hand, went nuts. Nobody had told him of the changes. My deputy flew out on the plane I flew in on, meaning I didn't get a handover of the work that was going on. On top of that, the cost for the hotels, taxis, and extra days' pay had all come out of my boss's operational budget. I think the total amount added was almost 1,000 pounds. But hey, they saved 80 pounds on the flight cost. Am I the jerk for making my husband do his chores even when his parents are over to visit? I, 29 female, am married to Andrew, who's 34 male. We both work full-time and we have a 2-year-old, Sophie. My in-laws are not bad people, but they believe in very traditional roles when it comes to marriage. My husband also felt this way when we started dating 6 years ago. It was a major deal breaker for me, so before we moved in together, I made it clear I would not both work full-time and then come home and be responsible for all the chores at home. My husband agreed to these terms, but struggled in the beginning, to the point where I moved out and we broke up for about 3 months. It was a bit of an adjustment, but after some time, we found a natural flow to manage our household. His parents are aware of why we had broken up, and they're a bit horrified that I make my husband do the dishes and scrub a toilet. I mostly ignore their glances and faces, but the other night, my mother-in-law actually verbalized their feelings for the first time. After a dinner that I cooked, my husband can cook now, but couldn't when we met. We were sitting around the table enjoying a glass of wine when my husband got up to clear the table. I did not ask, but it is his responsibility if I cook. And I guess he decided to also do the dishes, which he would also be responsible for. It was about 15 minutes after he left the table when my father-in-law asked where he was. I said he was probably doing the dishes so he doesn't have to do them later, and my mother-in-law piped to question why I hadn't cleared the table and why I wasn't doing the dishes. I simply said it was his job to do it, and my mother-in-law said something about how much he hates doing it, and that in her day, she would never make father-in-law do that. I just joked, "Well, I guess I just trained Andrew better." He often says I trained him well as a joke. Mother-in-law and father-in-law didn't laugh, and I changed the subject. The next day, my husband was talking to his mom, and she mentioned how she was upset that he walked away from the table and that I could have done the dishes so they could spend some more time with him. He mentioned that he could have done the dishes after they left, but figured 15 to 20 minutes wasn't a big deal. She doubled down and said that I could have just done it so they could have spent more time visiting. She said my rules are rigid and he has allowed me to wear the pants when he's the man of the house. He defended our setup by saying we both contribute equally to the household. So now I've been thinking, am I the jerk for not picking up the slack when they're over? For reference, my parents also came over and my husband and I still fulfilled our chores, but I normally do the cooking for guests because even though my husband has learned to cook, he's a basic cook. My mom thinks I should just order food or let him cook when they come over, so then I would do the cleanup. Not sure my in-laws would appreciate takeout though. Not the jerk. I wonder if they, for even 1 second, consider the fact that he would like 15 to 20 minutes less sharing time with them because it sounds exhausting. He doesn't take over every job you have when you had family visiting. Why is his family time more valuable than your time with your family? Not the jerk. And mother-in-law needs to mind her own business. You taught him what she should have taught him. You're the jerk. His mom is right. It's obvious you are the one that wears the pants in that house. Would Reddit still be cheering you on if you were the husband and you spoke about your wife this way? She's probably doing the dishes so she doesn't have to do them later. I guess I trained her better. Of course not. Everyone all would be calling you names and saying your wife should leave you. Everyone sucks here. I think you need to be more flexible. You don't tell us how often your husband sees his parents. If it's not often, then I think ideally you should all chat around the table and put chores down the list of priorities. If there was a reason for the dishes being done straight away, then you could all help with them. Your parent-in-laws are awful jerks. That goes without saying. And well done for standing up to them. Making sounds super controlling. If this is your attitude, I wonder about the health and balance of your relationship. Why would you think like this? How does your husband feel about you thinking it's appropriate for you to make him do stuff? In my opinion, you are the jerk for this. Am I the jerk for not telling my boyfriend I own the house we live in? My boyfriend, male 25, and I, female 26, recently decided to move in together. His lease had expired and his roommates were looking to move out with their girlfriends. The rental scene where we live is crazy at the moment and he couldn't find anything close to where he works that fit his budget. We've been together just over a year. So I decided to offer him to move into my place. It's only about a 20-minute commute for him to get to work, and my friend recently moved out to go and live with her parents again, so it was just me in the house. He agreed and he moved in about 3 weeks ago. The issue began when he started to ask how much his half of the rent was. I responded and said rent wasn't an issue and that it's just easier for me to continue with how it was before he moved in. He was taken back, but we agreed to split water, electricity, groceries, etc. 50-50. Last weekend, I had some family over, and my dad was asking me about interest rates and my mortgage. He overheard this conversation, and after my family left, we had an argument. He was upset that I didn't tell him that I owned my home. He feels as if I lied to him and deceived him. He's upset because he feels like I betrayed his trust. I do see where he's coming from, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. I was eventually going to tell him, I just didn't think I absolutely had to tell him in that moment. Most of my friends are telling me that I should have told him before he moved in, but a few of them firmly believe that it wasn't a huge deal. Edit. This was the only thing my man didn't know about me. Owning my home is a privilege I never thought I'd ever achieve, so when I tell people, I feel uncomfortable because I don't want it to appear like I'm flexing. Finances were something that my parents always told me shouldn't be discussed. I don't know specifically how much he makes, and the same goes for him. Also, we are good. I've profusely apologized and admitted it was dumb to not be truthful and forthcoming, and because he's the greatest guy ever, he's forgiven me. Not the jerk. You aren't married to him, you're not charging him rent, and there's no pressing need for him to know you're buying the house. Tell your friends to lay off. If he can't handle the fact that you're buying a house and he can't even rent one, send him on his way. I don't even understand this story. Why would you not share with your boyfriend of over a year that you own the house he just moved in? You're the jerk in any case because you don't hide things from a partner. Especially when he moves in. How do you not let someone know the terms of their house? Is there a landlord? How long is the lease? Oh, you own it? That's relevant to him living there. On the other hand, what kind of irresponsible dimwit is he to not ask these questions? He just moved all his stuff into a new house without having any idea who owned it or how he was going to afford it. He clearly doesn't have renter's insurance. You're the jerk. He seems like he wants to have a solid, respectful relationship with you. His asking, unprompted, how he could contribute to the rent was really cool of him, and that probably should have been the time to tell him the truth. Before he moved in would have been better. Privacy or not, actively hiding that you own the home he now lives in makes it seem like you don't trust him and or think he'd take advantage of you if he knew. Finances were something that your parents always told you shouldn't be discussed? That's not really true. Sure, we don't discuss finances with strangers or acquaintances, but there are exceptions. Life partners are one of these. You have let him into your house and your life. Letting him know that you are paying a mortgage is not a lot of detail, and it would have been warranted if you see him as a potential life partner. You were giving mixed signals. You're the jerk. Am I the jerk for refusing to rent to my pregnant friend? I, 32 female, grew up in a low-income household and was determined from an early age to start investing and owning real estate. I graduated from pharmacy school with minimal debt and bought my first rental property. I currently own 4 rental properties with my fiance. We both learned how to remodel and fix basic things to keep costs low. We use the rental property money to invest in stocks and are looking into buying a 5th property. My best friend, 32 female, of 15 years, has been married to her husband for 3 years, and they have 1 kid and 1 on the way. Their landlord has decided to evict them. He's given them 60 days to find a new place. They've asked if they could live in one of my rental properties. The problem is, they're not very clean people, and that's one of the main reasons for their eviction. My friend has 4 cats, and they go to the bathroom everywhere. On their clothes, sofa, beds. They also tend to scratch the walls and cabinets. She says it's just because they're jerks. Their current home is on the brink of being on a Hoarders episode. Her husband spends his free time playing video games and does not try to help in cleaning or doing any of the chores. My friend has also asked if we could give her a discount on the rent since they're about to have their 2nd baby. Both of them work, but my friend's job will not pay her the whole time she's on maternity leave. I told her I could give her a temporary reduction on the rent, but she would not be allowed to have the cats. She said they're like her kids and she couldn't get rid of them. She said that would be like asking her to get rid of her kids, and I'm the jerk for even suggesting it. I told her those were my stipulations. I've been fortunate that my tenants with pets are respectful and clean up religiously after them. She currently is not talking to me and telling our other friends that it's my fault she's about to be homeless. A couple of friends have said I should make an exception, but I've put so much time and money into these homes. So, am I the jerk for telling my friend she can't move in with her cats? Not the jerk. Never mix business and friendship together. Not the jerk. And honestly, this was a choice between losing this friend now or losing them later after they ruined your stuff and you had to evict them. Cats going to the bathroom everywhere is not normal. It's either health, stress, or lack of proper litter care. That's not okay, and it's not healthy for humans, especially pregnant ones, nor is it healthy for the cats. Honestly, I wouldn't rent to someone that was evicted regardless of their cats. Not the jerk. You're the jerk for being a landlord. If someone bought out all of the essential items like clothing from the local store and then resold it at a 300% markup, we'd all agree that was immoral. Landlords do the same thing with houses. There's no reason for you to own 4 rental properties. As a renter, I prefer 100% to rent from a private person who actually cares about his property than from a company which owns 50 and doesn't give a hoot about you or the house. It's totally legit that he doesn't rent to whom he knows will destroy what he put so much effort into. It's not greediness, it's just caring for what you do. As a living person, I prefer 100% for people to have their basic needs met instead of having to shell out hundreds of thousands of dollars for a monthly subscription to being alive. Landlords are jerks. Point blank, done. You're the jerk for being a landlord. People like you are the reason people can't afford to buy homes. No one needs 2 homes, let alone 5. You're the jerk for being a landlord and owning property you're not living in. Way to exploit people. You're the jerk. It's your investment. You took a risk when you made it, and it's your choice to do what you can to make money off it. You're a landlord, and that inherently means that you'll be incentivized much more often than not to be a jerk. You can either choose to be an ethical landlord who rents at low rates to whoever needs it and risk your tenants constantly ruining its value, or you can be a successful landlord who makes money off your property by turning away people in need and exploiting those you do rent out to. But you'll never have it both ways. Your entire job is to put profit over people, and that means you'll be a jerk. If you don't want to be a jerk, don't be a landlord.
Reddit boy, sometimes the people on Reddit really make me lose faith in humanity.
You're not alone, Karen. You're not alone. Am I the jerk for telling my former employee I need to be paid if he wants my help? A couple of months ago, I, 28 female, left the job after close to 10 years of being there. It was an accumulation of things, but I really just needed somewhere that was going to give me more money since I just had a baby. I told my boss my concerns. He refused to give me a raise. I found another job, accepted, gave my 2 weeks, and left. I thought I had left on good terms. I wrote him an email stating I was beyond grateful for the last decade. He wrote back stating I would be welcome back at any time, no matter what. It felt nice to have that little security, especially after so much time there. Things ended up not working out at the current company, and it was mildly embarrassing, but I shot my boss an email telling him what was going on and asking for my old job back. He reached out to me stating that they had already replaced me and that unfortunately I was not welcome back since I had asked for more money. The last part stung a little since he told me I would be welcome back at any time. My old coworker texted me and told me that he lied. He hadn't even begun interviewing anyone, leaving her all alone to do both my work and hers as well, and was telling everyone how embarrassing it was that I couldn't hack it in the real world and how I groveled for my job back. I admit I cried a few tears, but I let it go and ended up finding a job that I absolutely love now. This morning, I woke up to a text from him asking if I would be able to help my former coworker with paperwork that she was having trouble with. I told him what my rate for an hour of work was, and he texted me back stating he cannot believe how greedy and money-hungry I was. I left my coworker with everything she needed to know. I trained her for the last 2 whole weeks I was there, gave her access to all my files, passwords, asked her if she needed help understanding anything, and kept no intellectual property. I told him that was only fair, and since he doesn't work for free, neither do I. He, his wife, and my former manager all texted me, calling me vindictive and out for revenge since he refused to give me my old job back. But I'm not. I have no desire to be spiteful. I just don't want to work for free when I trained someone to do my job just the way he asked. Am I the jerk for telling him he needed to pay me to help? Not the jerk. You know your worth. He's just upset that you've set a boundary. My Karen neighbor feels entitled to camp on my land. I own 16 acres of woodland behind my house, and it's very clearly my property as there are signs up stating that it is private property. I'm generally good with people walking through it, taking their dog for a walk, or hiking, or even local kids playing there as it's a safe place and beautiful. And so long as they don't cause any damage or mess with the trees, I see no reason to get upset over this. An issue came up, however, tonight when I was on a walk and I saw a fire through the trees. I admit I panicked, thinking a dog walker had been out and tossed a cigarette, or some local teens were setting fires for fun. I rushed out to check on it and tried to put out the fire and found one of my neighbors camping with her boyfriend and friends. It was a group of 5 people in their mid-20s, and they had a roaring campfire going. They got startled by me rushing up to them and asked me what the heck I was doing. I asked them the same question back and told them they couldn't camp here and they had not asked permission to do so. This led to some laughter and protests, saying that they were doing no harm and to lighten up. I told them to put the fire out and get off my land. I didn't want to risk a campfire there as it could easily get out of hand, especially when the group manning it were more than a little drunk. They ended up refusing, stating they weren't going anywhere and were not doing anything wrong, so I went home and called the police to get them off my property. They were made to leave and break up their camp. Am I the jerk for this? They probably thought it was okay, as I'm good with letting people use my land in general. I maybe could have handled it better, but I'd gotten a fright seeing the fire and how they responded. It really just got to me. Dog walking and camping are 2 very different things. They should have asked for permission, and anyone who says lighten up when confronted with trespassing deserves to have the police called on them. Their entitlement and attitude is to blame, not you. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. They literally started a fire on your property. This is how bushfires start, drunk people. Is it not illegal to start fires on other people's land? OP. It very likely is. I don't know all the specifics of the law, but the police were not amused when I told them what was going on and were quick to come over. Won't approve my purchases? Okay, I can work with that. I was a one-man IT shop at a small manufacturer. I had been there for years. I was actually the 3rd employee ever hired, and now the company was like 120 people. I was very frugal, but in smart ways. I got a lot done for little money and always was looking out for the company. The owner recognized and respected this. Anyhow, we had gotten big enough where I didn't report to the owner anymore, and I was assigned to report to an inexperienced accountant who got her degree from some sketchy online school. She was going to change the world. I used to be able to just buy anything I wanted because the owner knew whenever I asked for a company credit card, that I had already done my homework and it would be good for the company. Well now, if anything was over $500, I had to go through this process with her to justify it. It wouldn't bug me, except that she had no real business savvy or common sense. It was just painful to me to try and explain the most obvious things to her, and she would fight it just because of power tripping or something. Example, I was trying to justify having at least one computer loaded up and ready to go as a hot spare for when someone's broke. She balked at having $1,500 sitting on a shelf unused. I tried to explain that about once a month, someone's computer would break. All she could see was the $1,500 sitting unused most of the time. She couldn't understand the real cost of a broken computer, that the person could no longer do their job effectively, parts not getting ordered, jobs not getting expedited, emails not getting returned, me having to drop everything to react to this situation, overnighting in parts. The true impact cost to the company was several hundreds of dollars every month. She couldn't see that having a spare would pay for itself in half a year or so. After a half an hour of fighting over this, I had an epiphany. I handed her requisition approval forms to her, told her she was right, and left. Any purchases under $500 didn't need any approvals at all. Now, nothing I ever bought was over $500. I didn't buy a spare computer, I bought 3 as parts and assembled them into computers. Servers? Network storage? Why justify to a bean counter who wouldn't understand anyway? Just buy more parts and assemble yourself. Dual monitors for everybody, bought one at a time. Explain to her that toilets typically have less than 20% usage, but when you need one… Fun fact, the typical car only spends 6% of its life being driven around. The other 94% of the time, it's just an expensive paperweight. And when her computer finally breaks, tell her, "Sorry, we don't have a spare computer ready to go, so you'll have to wait while we fix this one. Should take about 5 to 10 days to get your computer working again. Shouldn't affect your productivity, right? I'm sure your supervisor will understand." Call me unprofessional? Okay, good luck finding another instructor. I realize today there are not enough stories on here about teachers and malicious compliance. So as a teacher of 2 decades, I decided it was time to write out mine. First and foremost, this is a story about a toxic workplace. This could happen in any business in the world. It just happened to occur in a school. Many moons ago, my school was having a massive shift in priorities and focus. We were a rural school, so new principal assigned to the building, pupils being redistricted, mass retirements, several people were being pushed out and run off by the incoming principal. A good number of people quit because of the toxic work environment, but I was not in a position to do so. At the time, I had a unique schedule. I taught mostly dual credit courses to juniors and seniors, but I also taught one course of students with SEN, SPED issues. The dual credit courses required a specific advanced degree, as I was essentially teaching college credits in the high school. This detail will become essential later. At my school, we would be assigned support teachers to give additional help to students with SEN, SPED services. That support was not allowed to teach, but would typically share a classroom with the content teacher. I was usually unconcerned with who my assigned support was, as I'm a laid-back person who can work with just about anyone and I don't care about sharing a classroom. But there was one male support teacher who was not allowed in my room or near me in the hall, ever. For the sake of this story, we'll refer to him as Jerk. If ever a man knew how close he could get to harassment without crossing the line, it was him. Heck, sometimes he did cross the line. I made dozens of complaints, but nothing was ever done as I wasn't the target of his comments. The school year in question, Jerk was assigned to the most experienced teacher in the building. She was set to retire at the end of the year. Coupled with her no-nonsense attitude, the powers that be thought she could keep him in line. It took 3 weeks, and she threatened to quit if Jerk was not moved out of her classroom. Fearful of losing another teacher at the start of a chaotic year, Jerk was assigned to me as my support teacher. I found out when he walked into my room, announced that we would be buddies now, and made a crude joke about how he could domesticate me. I immediately left the school sick and called my principal about the matter. He informed me in no uncertain terms that I could not refuse to work with someone just because that person made me uncomfortable. I reminded him of the previous complaints I had made. He snapped at me a bit, telling me he could not believe what an unprofessional child I was being. I was told to come up with a legitimate reason Jerk shouldn't be in my class or shut my mouth and make it work. After hanging up the phone, the malicious compliance began. You see, I did have a legitimate reason. Because of a health issue I have had for my entire life, and during extended periods of stress and anxiety can really hurt me. I even carry medicine with me to lower my heart rate just in case. Step 1 was to call my doctor, who brought me in the very next day after I explained what was going on. She took my blood pressure, faxed a medical letter to my school immediately, and signed me out of work for 6 weeks since I had 6 weeks of leave earned at this point. Step 2 was to literally stop doing anything. Usually when a teacher goes out, lessons are pulled from other members of the school who teach the same content. Unfortunately for them, I was the only person in my building teaching dual credit. A few phone calls by my principal to the surrounding schools taught him what I already knew. I was the only person teaching these courses out of 11 high schools. There were no lessons to be found. I'm not sure what they gave my students to do during that time, but it surely wasn't the correct work. Step 3 was to let 2 or 3 of the parents know what was going on. I never directly told them, but a friend of a cousin of a neighbor might have heard about my health issues and passed the information along. Here's the point in the story where you think I'm about to tell you I enjoyed my 6 weeks paid vacation and went back to work, right? Oh no, the malicious compliance continues. A week before I'm scheduled to return to work, my principal calls me up. Standard well wishes about my health are extended, after which he says that he hopes the weeks away from the building have cleared my mind and helped me realize how hysterical I was acting. He continued by telling me that regardless of my feelings, I would continue to have Jerk as a support teacher. I asked him if he was ready to lose a teacher over this, and he laughed and hung up. Knowing that this was probably going to happen, I already had a doctor's appointment set up for phase 2. Because my health issue is explicitly and clearly covered by the ADA, my doctor issued me reasonable accommodation paperwork to give HR. Essentially, I was to be allowed to teach in the least stressful environment possible, as determined by myself and my supervisor, along with a doctor's note restricting me to teaching duties that could be performed at home because of the excessive stress currently in the building. I checked with a lawyer to make sure my contract was airtight. It was, and I delivered the paperwork to the head of HR, whose kid I taught. I also contacted my college supervisor, whose kid I taught, to inform her that as of Monday, I would have been absent for more than 20% of the seat time for my courses, thus rendering those credits invalid. Over the weeks, she had pieced together what was going on, despite the school refusing to communicate any information with her, and she was furious. She may have told other parents what was going on, which resulted in dozens of calls to the school within a few days. By Monday, my accommodations were approved. I was allowed to teach my classes virtually from my home to save the embarrassment of canceling dual credit courses, and I rode out the year at home before transferring districts at the end of the year. I never spoke to or saw Jerk again.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.